So I think it's important we go out and garner people's views. Freedom of information has been in place in the current format since 2018. So I think it's a good position to pause, take a look at what we actually have in place and see if any changes need to be brought forward.
The purpose of freedom of information requests is effectively to boost accountability and transparency from government. So doesn't adding that extra layer of bureaucracy actually defeat the object of that?
Well, that doesn't necessarily mean there will be an added layer of bureaucracy. I mean, I assume you're making reference to the charging structure potentially, or additional rules around how many freedom of information requests people can make. One of the things we actually know is that a very small number of people are actually making a disproportionate amount of freedom of information requests out of the total, and that is actually having a direct effect on government. So, for instance, if you look at the number of hours for freedom of information requests, it's gone up exponentially, the amount of workload. So in 2018, there was only 10 requests that took more than 18 hours to actually produce the result. Now in 2024, there's 49. And in terms of people submitting FOI requests, there was actually 10 requesters with more than 10 requests in the last period.
Do you think it would help if government was more transparent to begin with and that information was more accessible? I know in the past you've even said that the government website is awful to navigate.
Yeah, and it's one of the things certainly in Cabinet Office we are looking to do alongside anything else, regardless of what this consultation comes out with. I've always been very clear we need to have more access to data. There needs to be more online accessible data for people, open source data, and that is one of the things we're pushing in the Cabinet Office and with the Government Technology Service to see what we can do. Alaman website is a start. We need also to be using AI more effectively to ensure that people can find things, but an awful lot of the FOIs that do come in are things that are already readily available and people get directed to where they can actually find it already.
Last year, 647 requests, around two-thirds of overall requests were responded to with a Section 20 exemption, which effectively means that the information's already out there publicly elsewhere. I know we've just talked about this, but I mean, do you think that departments need to be taking a more proactive effort into actually putting information where it's visible and public?
Well, I think some departments are very good at it, and to be frank, others aren't so good. But like I say, from my point of view, the more open access data out there, the better.
Jersey has a cost limit, which is 12.5 hours. The data shared in the consultation shows their requests are still increasing year on year. So why is Why is this considered an effective approach to reducing the workload?
So in terms of the cost, potential cost for an FOI, there is no decision being made yet. I think it's important when we go out to public consultation, we put all ideas on the table, whether those ideas are controversial, popular or not, because I think it's important we have that discussion. It doesn't mean because it's in a consultation document that's the route we're going to go down. If we were to start charging for FOI, which like I say is speculative at the moment, it would need to be a reasonable fee, as in something that is affordable for people, because as you rightly say, the whole point of FOI is transparency. But we do, as I say, actually have a current situation where, for instance, in the last period for FOI, we had the top three people putting FOIs in. One made 34 submissions, one made 33, one made 31. There's some people who are consistently putting in large requests, which take a large amount of time. You mentioned there about Jersey and their 12.5 hours. One of the problems, of course, with that, when you look at it, is you've got to start undertaking the work to begin with to actually work out that it is onerous. And now I don't know Jersey that well in terms of how they do it, so I'm not sure how, if someone challenged it and said, why is it taking you over 12 hours, how they actually prove that, because I would have thought until you've actually undertaken the work, you don't necessarily know how long it's going to take.
It's been pointed out that government has managed to break down the costs associated with FOIs, yet when government's been asked to disclose the costs of consultations, for example, the data hasn't been forthcoming. Why is that?
There's a very simple reason for that, which is in terms of FOI, it doesn't cross departments. So, for instance, when you make an FOI request, if it breaks across departments, you have to make the FOI to each individual department. Consultations can spread across the multitude of government. So it's very hard with the different pockets of time around government that might go into a consultation to be able to break down an overall cost. FOI is much more simple because if you, for instance, make, say a request request to defer just off the top of my head, asking for the number of cattle that have been registered or something similar. That is one officer potentially dealing with that, and it's very easy to log and record the time. It's not so much with consultations that can spread across different areas of government.
And just to round up, as we look at reforming the freedom of information process, a lot of people have questioned why the steam packet isn't FOIable. Is there any thought being given towards making that an authority which can be sent FOI requests?
So this is something that's actually going to come back to Tynwald this year. There was a Tynwald debate several months ago around the schedule to FOI and who's actually included within the schedule, and there is already a pledge undertaken to actually bring back work on that. I'll be actually making a statement to next month's Tynwald in April around that and when we're likely to be bringing that back for Tynwald consideration.
Thank you for making it to the end of the Manx Radio Newscast. You are obviously someone with exquisite taste. May I politely suggest you might want to subscribe to this and a wide range of Manx Radio podcasts at your favourite podcast provider so our best bits will magically appear on your smartphone. Thank you.